My name is Dr. H.E. Holliday, and I'm affectionately called Doc Holliday. I always tell people I've been called worse, so Doc's fine with me. I'm currently associate professor here at Kennesaw State University. But I'm also a former principal, parts of 4 different decades in both Ohio and in Georgia. I've been a high school and middle school principal. I've also been an associate superintendent here in Georgia. I've been in big schools, mid-sized schools, and small schools. So I've kind of seen it all. My claim to fame here in Georgia is I was the first African-American male high school student ever in Cobb County Schools, which is the second largest school district in Georgia. And that was in 1992 at Wheeler High School. In 2003, after my second year as principal at Campbell Middle School, which is a large, at-risk, very diverse middle school in South Cobb County, we had about 1,400 students, highly transient, almost 50% transient. And when I say transient, I mean you might have 1,400 students at the first day of school in August, but by the end of the year, 50% of those students have gone somewhere else. So that's very frustrating, and it's something that a lot of schools across America are having to deal with. What I noticed when I got to Campbell was there was low expectations for all the students, low academic and behavioral as well. So I knew I had to get on that right away. What I decided to do is look at some instructional strategies that were a little different. I had known about gender-based classes, but at that time in 2003, gender-based classes were illegal in the United States because of the Title IX laws. Title IX simply says that you have to have the same resources, provide the same resources for boys and girls. So, with that in mind, knowing that it was illegal, I decided to do some research on it, and happened to run across a video on 60 Minutes by Leslie Stahl, and it was entitled "Boys," and it looked at the academic descent of boys all across America. It's not just in high or at-risk areas, it's all across America. So she was talking about some of the things that she had discovered on this 60 Minutes program. And one of the things was setting aside certain classes for boys and also girls, and making sure teachers were well informed about strategies that connected with your boys and strategies that connected with girls. And she particularly talked about a class out in California, which was at an at-risk school. And they divided the classes and gave boys to teachers who were trained to meet the needs of boys. And lo and behold, these at-risk students performed magnificently at the midterm and also at the end of the school year. So I said to myself, if they could do that in California, we should be able to do that here in Georgia. So I started one of the first classes ever, gender-based classes in Georgia, public schools. Well, when we put those kids in those classes, and we had all boys, all girls, and we had mixed classes. And by the first quarter, you could see startling differences in the academic attainment. Our boys performed they saw double-digit gains. Our girls saw gains as well. And our kind of mixed class was kind of the same. They didn't see those types of gains. So what happened is that we started meeting on every other week with those teachers who were teaching gender-based classes, and kind of chronicling what strategies they were using to ensure that kids were rising above the norm and doing exceedingly well academically. We also had them write down the areas or strategies to avoid, because there's some things you have to avoid. You can't have prolonged lecturing. because that just doesn't work with young people anymore. You have to have group work. You have to give them some choice in assignments. You have to have technology. These are all things that we know work now. After about the first quarter, we went from 16 teachers I kind of tapped to be a part of this program to 32 who wanted to volunteer now to be involved in this gender-based program. So it just kind of goes to show you that if you're doing things well, the word will get out. Of course, your students are excited, your parents are elated, and teachers want to be a part of any success story. So from that piece, we got a lot of press, positive press, newspapers, TV slots. They came out to visit us. We also had a lot of visitors from other countries. Well, the reason we tried is we didn't have anything else to lose. We were not doing well academically, and these were research-based ideas that weren't prevalent in this area, but they were happening across the U.S. So my answer to your question is you've got to have leadership who is willing to take chances. You know, you can't, the status quo is no longer an option. It's no longer an option. You can't solve this problem by just saying, well, we're going to plod along and make incremental changes will not work in the 21st century. You got to make radical changes. You got to be research based, but radical changes. Now, everyone is not comfortable doing that, and I understand that, but we need more change agents out there who are willing to step out there and generate your support levels of support. I had developed the parental support that first day. They were hooked. I had already briefed our superintendent, who really had worked in he was General Redden was a former commandant at the Air Force Academy, so he was used to working with male groups, female groups, etc. So I had their support, but I had to also win over the students and the teachers. And the way you do that is you've got to commit to advocate for what's best for your students. And sometimes it's in opposition to what's best for teachers, because, you know, I'm expecting teachers to make some changes in the way they're delivering instruction. Some don't always want to do that, and that's okay. And this is what I told those people: those who don't want to do it, you are entitled to your opinion about how to instruct students. It's just that while you're here at Campbell Middle School, this is the way I want it done. Now, if you look and examine private schools or parochial schools, they've had gender classes for years and years, but they've been private, so they have a different set of rules that they guide their behavior. In the U.S., we were just catching on. Public schools were catching on late in the game. So all you have to do is look at some of the private schools in and around Cobb County or Metro Atlanta, and you'll see a lot of them were gender-based schools, gender-based classes at least. And that's what I think the problem has become so acute in the U.S. with the downward slide of these boys academically, that you have to perform some radical surgery. Incremental surgery is not working with this group. We're losing too many. If you look at the dropout rates and all that, it's just not good. So there are some examples of it, but you have to look in the private sector. More and more schools were trying it initially, but it's not the easiest thing to do now. I'm going to tell you, because you've got to be consistent about what you expect teachers to, the way you want them to perform. There are some things you cannot do. Discipline is an issue. It is an issue, and it's kind of daunting for a young lady like you to go in and you got 20, 25 young men. You know, they're full of energy, but if you got the right strategies, you can get them to work pretty quick.